And of course, thanks to Hal Orthus and all the team here, our hosts at Vertec Vision. It's good of all of you to interrupt your work. I know it's tough to do on a Friday afternoon. Good of all of you to interrupt your work to take a little bit of time to show us around here. This is quite a gathering, Hal. Your colleagues and your employees do put on quite a show. The laser templating technology that we just looked at is quite remarkable. It's an incredible capability for Canada to possess. The kind of core of knowledge that this represents, so concentrated here in this region, the so-called technology triangle, this is very important to our country. Some might even call it a strategic asset. Now, you know, when we talk about strategic assets, we tend to think of tangible things like oil reserves, a fleet of ships, infrastructure in all of its various forms. But when others have those things as well, many of them do, what sets us apart, what alone can give us the edge, is advanced knowledge. Which brings me to why I am here today. I have recently visited several of Canada's leading aerospace companies in different parts of the country, and it has been an eye-opener. What I'm seeing is that we have that kind of advanced knowledge, cutting-edge knowledge and technology here in Canada. And I must tell you that as a Canadian, it makes me proud to see what you and all of the other great people in this industry are capable of. You are part of a production stream that makes high-quality, precisely engineered products. Products that must work with complete reliability in the most demanding of environments. Let me ask you this. If it takes an exceptional piece of machinery to work flawlessly, predictably, dependably, at very high altitudes, under very high G-force, and at temperatures that range from colder than the Arctic to almost the melting point of lead, what kind of people does it take to make it? Well, it takes people with exceptional skills and exceptional commitment. The people in this room are those kinds of people. So in fact, it's the people in the room here who are the strategic assets. Now for you, ladies and gentlemen, as Peter already mentioned, we have a task that is worthy of your skills. It is to help provide our national government with the tools that it needs to carry out the first duty of any government, and that is to defend the sovereignty of our country. I'm speaking, of course, of the role of this firm and this industry in building the Joint Strike Fighter, the F-35 Lightning II. You are part of a story that began a long time ago, so long, in fact, that I think our friends in the opposition, which was the government at the time, have forgotten it. In 1997, Canada signed on to an international consortium to develop the F-35 Lightning II. It did so after, and I repeat, it did so after, an exhaustive consideration of the alternatives for replacing the CF-18 at the end of this decade. C'était un gouvernement libéral qui a choisi le F-35 il y a maintenant 14 ans. Et nous avions appuyé cette décision à l'époque, car c'était la bonne décision à prendre. Our predecessors chose the Lightning because they believed it was the best aircraft for Canada and for our men and women in uniform. A measure, by the way, that we supported in opposition because it was the right thing to do. Now, sadly, as you know, we now hear some in Parliament expressing reservations about the F-35. Some talk even openly about cancelling it should they get the chance. Of course, and I'm not going to beat around the bush about this, of course, it is all political opportunism. But that doesn't mean that we should not take such threats seriously, because this would not be the first time. In 1993, they cancelled a badly needed replacement for Canada's Sea King helicopters. As a result, years and billions of taxpayers' dollars later, we are only now starting to replace that aircraft. I don't know, maybe it was good politics at the time, but I can tell you it was very bad for the military and very bad for this country. Contract penalties antiquated aircraft with costly maintenance, constantly rising maintenance costs, lost opportunities for Canadian firms and workers. That's what it meant in the 20 years that followed. And we ended up, ladies and gentlemen, having to eventually buy the new helicopters anyway. To do the same today, to cancel the F-35 contract, would be just as bad for Canada. It would be bad for the men and women of Canada's Air Force, bad for Canada's aerospace industry, and bad for the high-tech industry to which all of you belong. The costs would once again involve not only the extra expense of finding an alternative, in this case a second aircraft, to replace the CF-18s, but it would also mean the loss of up to $12 billion in industrial opportunities for Canadian firms. For the last 13 years, through governments both Liberal and Conservative, Canada has been fully involved in the development, design, and initial production phases of this world-class aircraft. That's, of course, why we're here today, why some of the work is being done here today. Governments, starting with our predecessors, have already committed $400 million of taxpayers' money to the development of this aircraft. The prototypes are in the air. Its once and only serious competitor is now on static display in a Florida museum. So, when people talk rashly about canceling the contract, what exactly is their alternative? Nothing? Nothing? Nothing is not an option. Nothing is not an option for the Air Force, and nothing is not an option for the Canadian aerospace industry. I want to talk a little bit more about the role of this industry in this aircraft. The F-35 program is the largest cooperative allied program since the Second World War. There will be a huge production run, literally thousands of aircraft. It means skilled jobs in this industry for a generation. And potentially, as I mentioned, billions of dollars in production and ongoing maintenance. But only if we're buying the aircraft, only if we're part of the consortium,